Hello folks, Ben France here with Benjamin France Music, coming at you again with another video in the series of the project Samick by Valley Arts Pro guitar build or rebuild, I guess is probably a better way to put it. Today I'm going to walk you through the process of how to make a template for the shape of the body through with a 1/2 inch piece of MDF. That way we have something to use for a router with a guide bearing bit to get the edges perfectly flat and get the top perfectly matched up to the bottom. Now, there may be a question as to why I didn't do this on the front end, and a couple reasons. One, I didn't have the right router bit, and two, I was kind of freehanding, figuring out what I wanted to do with the shape of the body based on shaving down the back half of the body or the back of the body on this guitar. So anyway, let me kind of get the camera turned around, and we will show you how the process works. Have a 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of 1/2 inch MDF here leaning up against the wall. Notice there's a line scribed on that already or drawn on that. I did that. It's basically based on, oh, there's a little spider there. Based on the size of the body that I'm going to be using this template for, the pre-existing Samick body that I've modified the shape of, and just cut that line, so I'll be working with a smaller piece of wood. Also, obviously, because then that leaves me about between 2/3 and 3/4 of the sheet to make some additional templates for future bodies. So, like I said, 1/2 inch thick MDF there. And got the table saw set up. I've already measured out my fence here to be the same distance from the blade to that line. I use a rigid R4612, I believe is the model number table saw. I've been very happy with this. It's a relatively new purchase in the past few months, cast iron top. And it's just a workhorse. So I took time to align the blade, make sure the blade was aligned with the miter slots, and also to make sure that the fence was aligned with the blade as well. So we're going to get a perfectly square, true cut. So first step is obviously to cut that board down to a more manageable size. So let me get the camera set up and we will do that. All right, folks, so here we go, getting ready to run that board through to get our starting piece cut down to a more manageable size. Things that I always do, or try to always do, especially working with MDF, because this is some nasty stuff on how it's built. There's actually some formaldehyde and things like that in the glue that's used to make MDF. So things that I will always do is I will always put on a respirator before I cut MDF or do anything with MDF. I also will put some eye protection over my regular glasses here. I've got to find it, but somewhere I've got a set of safety glasses that'll fit over the top of these. So I'll do both of those when I am getting ready to cut MDF, just for safety's sake. And also, since I am a musician first and foremost, hearing protection. Got some earplugs to put in so I don't make myself deaf from the sound of this saw. The saw itself is relatively quiet. That's one of the things I love about this, one of the selling points for me. But when it starts going through wood, obviously that's not necessarily the quietest thing in the world. So let's get safety gear on and get ready to cut this first slice through here. Safety goggles, as stated, something very worthwhile to have, even though I wear glasses. So put on a respirator first. And be prepared to not be able to hear me, so it'll be silent video from this point forward. Kind of just think of it as an old silent movie. So there we go, there's our initial cut on the MDF. Obviously nothing even remotely close to exciting, but it is a necessary part of this process. So we'll get the extra board out of the way. So that is step one. So next step in this process is to trace the outline of the body onto the guitar. So I'm going to move the camera because it's setting on top of the body at the moment. So now the next step in the process is to hold this guy down, put even pressure on it, and we're going to go all around the body. Notice I've got it face down and trace the outline of this. Reason I'm doing this face down is because on this guitar, if you've watched previous videos, I completely leveled this body on the top with my router sled, so it is completely flat on the top. Therefore, I know it's setting on a flat surface, and I know that it's not going to wobble or move any as long as I keep it held firm while I'm tracing the outline of it. Then, of course, you're going to see that some of the curves aren't 100% perfect. Some of them aren't 100% perfect, but I can smooth that out on this router. On the router, once I get the template out, which then will be transferred back over the body to smooth the body out a little more. So we're going to trace this guy starting on this horn, work all the way around it, and we'll probably go around it a couple times because I want to make sure the line is very, very dark and very easy to see, because the next step is going to be to take this body template that I'm tracing right now out of MDF to the bandsaw and rough cut it with the bandsaw. And then once we're done with that, I'm actually going to take the router itself and go around the edge and smooth it out to get it as close to perfect on that line as I can do. So obviously you want a nice dark line where you can really see what you're doing in order to be able to do that. So let me get back into the inside of this horn here. And yep, I can see where some of my curves aren't perfect, as I knew they would be. Now, up here for the outline of the neck heel, obviously that doesn't go all the way down flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the pencil up when we get to the edge, and I'm going to bring it a little wider, and then I can always shave that down later. But that will make sure that we don't completely get way off in left field because of the fact that there's nothing to trace on that bottom edge there. So do this guy. And then bring right around the edge of this horn to connect it as well. Let's get this back on here, because I didn't get that quite as dark as I wanted it to be on this neck heel. And get that nice and dark again too on the inside of this upper horn. And let's look around the edge first before we move the guitar at all, before we move the body. Doesn't look like we have any gaps, so we should be good now. If we pull off the body, there is our shape for our template. So the next step in the process is going to be to take this guy over to the bandsaw and, like I said, roughly cut him out in the shape that his final shape is going to be in. And then we'll smooth up the edges and get it perfect, or as close to perfect as we can get, with the router. So give me just a minute to get the camera moved where we can set up over by the bandsaw, and we'll work on that process next. Okay, folks, what you can see here in the shot is my bandsaw. This is a Shopsmith 11-inch bandsaw. It's part of the Mark V Shopsmith system. I got this guy on Craigslist for $100. If I continue, or as I continue to build guitars, I'm going to have to make the decision whether or not I'm going to buy a CNC machine or a lot of more traditional tools like this. If I do decide to stay the more traditional route, I'm going to need to get a bigger bandsaw. The biggest downside to this guy, as much as I love it, is that, and as much as it was a ridiculous deal, is that it only has a 6-inch resaw capacity. And as you can imagine, if you're trying to resaw a piece of wood for a guitar, for instance, like the flame maple top that we just went through the video on the last video, that board was 9.5 inches wide. Average guitar is probably 14, 15 inches wide, maybe a little more. So half of 14 or 15 is 7.5 inches. If you only got 6 inches of capacity, that doesn't work great. So, gotta get it set up, get safety gear on, get it plugged in, and get ready to start cutting out that traced body shape. Now, what we're gonna do with that body shape, obviously I'm not gonna be able to get all these curves perfectly on this guy. So, the goal is to get within maybe a couple mil or so, a couple millimeter, maybe 3 millimeter of the outside edge of this as close as I can. And then I will clean it up from there to bring it right down to that edge. Also, this horn here for the neck plate isn't hugely crucial for this purpose, because I'm using this more at this point for the top plate on this guitar than I'm using it for anything else for the top piece of wood. And obviously that's not going to be there on the top piece of wood. It actually's got to cut out somewhere down around here in a rectangular shape. So not real necessary if that isn't perfect, since it's something I had to kind of do a little bit of a more floating trace on, because it doesn't set flat all the way down onto the base here itself. All right, so here we go, folks. A very rough cut template for the top for the project guitar. Obviously, you can still see the line here intentionally. Like I said on the front end, I don't want to try to cut it with a bandsaw because I can't be that accurate. Pardon me, with it. Next step will be to smooth these lines out. All right, folks, so made a decision that we're going to use the router for trying to get this edge as clean and as close to that line as possible. This may be a little bit of a challenge because this is going to be freehand. Obviously, I'm trying to get around the edge of a pattern. I've got this guy clamped down pretty solidly to this base, so hopefully that's going to keep it from moving any. And we will see what happens. First off, though, let's talk a little bit about router safety because this is important. This is my router. This is a Bosch 1676, I believe, or 1670. It is not a tool rental, contrary to the sticker there. I actually bought it as a used tool rental about a decade ago from Home Depot. It still works great, though. Router safety. This guy can seriously F you up. Notice we're not plugged in once again. This spins at thousands of RPMs. You can lose a finger in a heartbeat with a router. And if you're watching this, likely like myself, you are a guitar player or a musician, so you don't want to lose a finger. So, things with the router you're going to notice. First off, I'm going to make sure before I ever flip the switch to turn it on, I'm going to have it setting down where it's away from me, where my hands aren't near it. I'm not going to get my fingers anywhere down in this area whatsoever. They're not going to go any lower than these cups, and they're not going to come around here to try to support it or anything like that. Since I'm floating in the air here, I'm going to be pushing some pressure on this back edge to try to keep it level. Other things. You'll notice I will not turn the router on till it's in that work position. I also, once I turn the router off, I will not move it off of the work position where I'm at until that bit comes to complete stop where it's no longer spinning. Then I will move it off of the workpiece. I will turn it, put it on the ground, and I will immediately unplug it. Other things you need to know, your router bit rotates a certain way. In this case, it rotates this way, clockwise, so towards me. What that means is that I want to route away from me this way. The reason I want to do that is if I go this way towards myself, it can catch and basically accelerate and launch itself. So you want to work away from your router blade. Also, if you look at your blades, that's kind of how they're shaped as well too. Is they're shaped where the edge is pointing that direction, so as it's spinning, it's cutting. So you want to be working against that rotation of the router. You want to go really slowly, and you want to kind of just let the router do the work itself. Obviously, when you get up in here, it's probably going to be a little bit more dicey because there's not a whole lot of body there to keep it flat on, but we're going to try our best, and we're going to see what happens. So, that being said, going to safety gear up, and we're going to get ready to do this. I am temporarily setting this guy upright, but once again, notice we are not plugged in, and it will not be sitting near my head upright before I plug it in. We're going to make sure that the power switch is turned off, and we'll set it down on the ground, and then it will get plugged in. So let's safety gear up, because routers cause a ton of dust, and then we will get into it. All right, folks, so I think we are done, or close enough for government work, based on the fact we'll do a little sanding on the edges of the body itself. But, so here we go, the final shape is pretty well sanded down. I just need to hit that a little bit, the edge of it, but, and once again, remember up here isn't a huge deal because of the cutout, but there we go. So that now is our template that goes on top of our flame maple. And we use that then to route out our flame maple. That's also our template that will go on top of the, we'll oversize our flame maple. Then we'll also use that to put on the guitar body itself to try to get everything nice and square and flush so it all lines up and matches up perfect. So, super excited about this. One step closer to getting this thing done. I first started on this project quite a while back and kind of lost motivation on it because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with it, but it is somewhat, lots of dust due to sanding and routing. It has somewhat went into overdrive recently. So, as always, Like I said, I would love it if you all would subscribe and click the like button, the thumbs up on this. That would be awesome. Also, ring the bell, ding a ding ding, so you can get notified when I do new videos. I'm trying to get over 100 subscribers so I can get my domain name on YouTube changed to custom domain name. And then from there, sky's the limit. But at 100 subscribers, I'm actually going to do something special based on hitting 100 subscribers. I don't want to give away too much on that yet, but it'll be something pretty cool, and it'll just be a random drawing among the first 100 people where somebody will get something pretty cool, or at least I think it's pretty cool. So anyway, like I said, subscribe, ring the bell, check back often. You can always follow me on Instagram at instagram.com, Benjamin France Music, on Twitter at Ben France Music, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Ben France Music as well. Hope everyone has a great evening, and I will be back with an update or video of some sort tomorrow. Take care, everyone.